Well, lesson learned. Don't take an edible the evening you're supposed to make a video. Decided I'd just go ahead and make it a double this week to make up for missing last week. I'm Gayfesh, and today we'll be talking 2 episodes of Star Trek Lower Decks, starting with Season 3, Episode 5, Reflections. But before we get started, make sure to like, subscribe, and ring the bell. Spoilers ahead. Okay, I have to save the meat and potatoes for the end because, holy crap, major character and plot development? Yes, please! So let's get the Mariner and Boimler story out of the way first. Ransom has sent Mariner and Boimler to run the Starfleet recruitment booth at a local jobs fair, and warns Mariner that if she leaves the booth without a big list of contacts, he'll transfer her to Starbase 80, which is the worst assignment in Starfleet. So she has to spend all day with people making snide comments about Starfleet right next to the freelance archaeologist booth. As soon as I saw that booth, I got excited. Are we gonna get a Vosh cameo? What? No, not Vosh. Vosh. But no, the booth is staffed by a woman named Petra Aberdeen, who I think is being set up as a potential love interest for Mariner. Mariner is tempted to jump out of the booth and throttle her for talking crap about Starfleet before learning that Petra is ex-Starfleet herself. Boimler, meanwhile, finally lets the Starfleet hate get the better of him, and he Hulk smashes basically every other booth while defending the honor of the service. His rage actually inspires a bunch of bystanders to sign up at the booth, and even though Ransom has to put him in the brig for the outburst, he's actually proud of him for standing up for Starfleet, and this might help his career. Okay, that's out of the way, let's talk motherfucking Doug Justin! Wait, no. Samantha Rutherford? He's been having nightmares that appear to have something to do with his past. Tendi notices a bunch of cached memories in his implant that seem to be clogging things up and offers to purge it for him. But in so doing, he wakes up to someone else controlling his body, as he can only watch from reflections. At first, this seems to be evil Rutherford with a red eye and a keen interest in stealing the captain's yacht. But once he's subdued and in sickbay, it's revealed this is actually Rutherford's personality from years ago when he was a first-year cadet. He was apparently a lot more rough and tumble in those days, doing illegal racing to finance his private engineering work. His brain has put both his current okie dokie personality and his bad boy past into a formless void where they have to decide which personality will remain. They decide to settle it with a race. Younger Rutherford builds a pretty killer tricked out ship, while our Rutherford builds the Delta Flyer. The race quickly becomes a fight for survival when they are attacked by a Romulan ship, and the current Rutherford gets a leg up because in this imaginary space, they can create anything, and he decided to create his friends, so he's got a whole crew running the Delta Flyer. Of course, these versions in his head are far more like him. Mariner even says okie dokie. Younger Rutherford's ship blows up, but they beam him over to rescue him. Younger Rutherford is badly injured and he's fading out, but before he goes, he's able to restore the memory of what happened. Rutherford was working on some secretive device when it blew up in his face, and some high-ranking Starfleet officer orders his memories wiped to cover something up. We don't know who they are or what secrets they're protecting, but that's okay, let's build that mythology out, yo. I think it would be cool if it was one of those asshole admirals from TNG, hell, maybe even Nechayev. But if not, it would be interesting if it was an admiral we've seen in Lower Decks already, like, say, Buenamigo. And with that, we're moving on to Episode 6, Hear All, Trust Nothing, or, as it should be properly titled, the DS9 episode. Captain Freeman has a trade negotiation with the Karema dumped on her lap at the last minute when Captain Nguyen of the Vancouver has an emergency to handle. So, everyone is going to Deep Space Nine. Duties are light, as all the Cerritos crew have to do is deliver some alcoholic gifts to sweeten the deal. Mariner doesn't want to spend time on the station having been posted there before, which leaves her to confront a different situation. Hanging out with her girlfriend's insufferable friends. Freeman, Ransom, and Shax head to Ops to meet up with Kira, who's old Resistance buddies with Shax, and they end up locked in an episode-long debate over which one of them owes the other their life because of how many times they saved each other through the years. Starting out cute, but almost immediately becoming a serious argument. Tendi, Boimler, and Rutherford hit up the promenade and pay a visit to Quark's bar. Quark's been franchising out his restaurant with a patented replicator that has proprietary drink patterns that Starfleet replicators can't make. I'm actually a little disappointed we didn't see Ezri, Bashir, or Jake. Kira and Quark are the natural choices to still be on the station this many years after the series finale, but it would be nice to see at least one more of the people who actually did stay on DS9 through the end of the series. Also, I know this is kind of unavoidable, it happens when we get older, but their voices sound off. For Nana Visitor, it's just a case of her voice aging, but Armin Shimmerman sounds like a completely different issue. I've seen more recent interviews with Shimmerman, and his voice hasn't really changed much. It sounds more like he forgot how to sound like Quark. A big part of what shapes the Quark voice has to do with the teeth he wears, and either they use different teeth that altered the results in the sound booth, or they didn't use teeth at all and Shimmerman just tried to replicate the sound. His voice was also at times a lot deeper than it should have been. Boimler quickly takes to the Dabo table because he's Bold Boimler now and he's feeling lucky. And that's really all we see of Boimler this week, but it's okay, he totally kicks ass at the Dabo table to the frustration of the house. Tendi catches the eye of an Orion Starfleet officer stationed on DS9. His name is Mesk, and he is laying on the whole Orions are pirates thing really thick, to her annoyance, but to Rutherford's delight, who can't see how uncomfortable it makes Tendi and just wants to geek out over everything on the station. When Freeman takes the Karema to Quark's bar to get him to vouch for the financial opportunities of the Alpha Quadrant, he starts acting uncharacteristically morally indignant that the Karema were war profiteers who did business with the Dominion. When the Karema see the Quark 2000, his proprietary replicator, they smash it open and see that Quark's been using stolen Karema technology to make it, and that's why he's been dodgy. I'd figured this out before they did, because there was no chance in hell Quark was suddenly developing a conscience on who he does business with. But they don't explain this to Freeman. Instead, they throw a device at a console that disables the station and docked ships, and beam Quark over to their ship to arrest him and take him to the Gamma Quadrant. Fortunately for Quark, Tendi, Rutherford, and Mesk are on the Karema ship, delivering the crates of alcohol that were the Federation gifts. Mesk has been talking a big game the whole episode about how much of an awesome pirate he is, but when the moment comes for them to actually take advantage, he reveals that he's got severe Worf syndrome. He was adopted by humans and raised in Ohio and only learned about Orion culture from trashy novels. Thankfully, Tendi was actually raised by Orion pirates, and she quickly takes to action and disables the ship, which is tractored back to the station. Meanwhile, back on the Cerritos, Jennifer's friends are hosting a salon, which is exactly as pretentious and insufferable as it sounds, replete with interpretive dance and snapping instead of clapping. Once the power goes out, Mariner realizes that the candles they've been lighting are burning up the oxygen in the room too quickly, but the host is all, "No! Candles must be extinguished with intention!" Mariner's been trying not to be bossy to make a good impression, but Jennifer goes, "What? No, dude. My friends suck. Go be a bitch at them." And go be a bitch at them she does. Once she realizes they'll all use a lot less oxygen if they're unconscious, she starts chasing them all around with the phaser. Back on DS9, Freeman learns of Quark's theft and comes up with a solution that leaves everyone happy except Quark. The Karema will open up trade with the Alpha Quadrant, and in return, they'll take 76% of the franchise profits from Quark's. I had been holding out hope that we'd get Sisko's return by the end of the episode, but first, I don't think Avery Brooks is interested in returning, and second, I think a lot of people might consider him showing up for a quick gag in a comedy series as robbing his return of meaning. But that's it for this week, and last week. Let me know your thoughts down below.
I wonder if Quark bucks are redeemable at any location. If so, the Dabo haul Boimler pulled off has him set for life for drinks and Quark swag.
Be sure to like, subscribe, ring the bell, and share the video with your friends. Subscribe to my Patreon to get shouted out in future videos. Check out my Bandcamp for banging tunes, including all the tracks you heard in this video. Follow me on Twitter at GayestFesh, and don't forget to check out my podcast, The Rest of Both Worlds, where I go through Star Trek The Next Generation with a friend who's never seen it. Thank you to all my patrons, with a special shout out to Piftle Cakes and Renee Vorbeck. Your support is greatly appreciated. See you all in the next video.